He had 11 unopened envelopes sitting in a kitchen drawer. He knew exactly what was inside every single one. And for almost a year, he chose not to know the total. His name was Farhan, 31 years old, a good son, a reliable friend, the kind of man neighbors describe as decent and quiet. 3 years earlier, Farhan's father got sick. The hospital bills came fast and did not stop coming. Farhan paid what he could with a credit card, then another card, then a small loan to cover the cards, then another loan to cover that loan. His father recovered. The debt did not. At first, Farhan tracked everything carefully. He knew his exact balance down to the rupee. He made a plan. He followed it for 4 months. Then one bill came in higher than expected. Then his car needed repairs he could not avoid. Then a wedding in the family required a contribution he felt too ashamed to skip. Slowly, Farhan stopped opening the mail. Not because he forgot, because every envelope felt like proof of something he could not face, that the gap between what he owed and what he earned was growing faster than he could close it. He kept working. He kept smiling at family gatherings. He kept paying the minimum on whichever card sent the angriest message that month. But every night, lying in bed, his mind would drift to that kitchen drawer. 11 envelopes, maybe 12 now. He genuinely did not know. Not knowing felt safer than knowing. That was the lie he told himself for almost a year. Then one ordinary Sunday afternoon, his younger sister found something in that drawer that she was never supposed to see. What happened next forced Farhan to face the number he had been hiding from for a year. Part 2 is next. His sister did not yell. She did not lecture him. She just sat across from him at the kitchen table and asked one quiet question that he had no answer for. Nyla was 24, sharp, and far more direct than Farhan ever was. She had gone looking for an old document in that drawer and found the envelopes instead. Unopened, stacked, some over 6 months old. She placed them on the table between them and asked simply, "Do you actually know how much you owe?" Farhan opened his mouth to answer with a guess, the way he always did when someone asked. A vague number, lower than the truth, always. But this time, looking at his sister's face, he stopped lying, even to himself. "No," he said quietly. "I don't know." Nyla did not react with shock or anger. She slid the envelopes toward him and said something that stayed with him for the rest of that night. "You cannot fix a number you refuse to look at." After she left, Farhan sat alone at that table for nearly 2 hours. The envelopes in front of him felt heavier than paper should ever feel. He opened the first one, then the second, then all 11. He wrote every single number on a single sheet of paper, line by line, hands slightly shaking. Credit cards, personal loans, a smaller debt to a cousin he had been too embarrassed to repay. He added it all together. The final number was almost 40% higher than the worst guess he had ever let himself imagine. He sat back in his chair. Strangely, the fear he expected did not come. Something else came instead, a kind of exhausted, clear-headed relief. The not knowing was finally over. Knowing the number was the easy part. What Farhan did over the next 10 weeks is the part almost nobody talks about, and the part that almost made him give up completely. Part 3 is where it gets real. Most people imagine paying off debt as one dramatic decision. It is not. It is 10 weeks of small, boring, uncomfortable choices that nobody applauds. Farhan made a simple plan. List every debt from smallest to largest. Attack the smallest one first while paying minimums on the rest. Cut every expense that was not rent, food, or transport to work. Week 1 was almost exciting. He canceled 3 subscriptions. He felt productive. Week 2 was harder. He skipped a friend's dinner because he genuinely could not spend the money and lied about why. The lie embarrassed him more than the truth would have. Week 4, he made his first real progress. The smallest debt was completely gone. He should have felt proud. Instead, looking at the remaining 10 envelopes still on the table, he mostly felt how far there was left to go. Week 6 was the lowest point. An unexpected expense hit. A relative needed help, and Farhan, out of guilt, gave money he had specifically set aside for his second debt that month. He set himself back by almost 3 weeks of progress in a single afternoon. That night, he sat at the same kitchen table where his sister had found the envelopes. He seriously considered going back to not knowing. At least then, the number did not feel like a personal failure staring back at him every single week. He almost called Nyla to tell her he was stopping the plan. Instead, he opened his notebook and looked at the progress sheet he had been keeping. 2 debts paid off, a third nearly done. Slow, smaller than he wanted, but real. He wrote one sentence at the bottom of that week's page. Progress, not guilt. That is the only thing that actually moves the number. He did not call Nyla. He adjusted the plan slightly and kept going. Week 6 nearly ended everything. But something happened in week 9 that Farhan never expected, and it changed how he saw this entire process. Part 4, the turning point. Nothing dramatic happened in week 9. No buinfot, no miracle. Just a small shift in how Farhan saw the number. And that shift changed everything that came after. By week 9, 3 debts were fully paid. The 4th was close. The total number on his page, the one that had once felt like a wall he could never climb, had dropped by almost a quarter. Farhan noticed something strange. He had stopped checking the total number every single day out of anxiety. He had started checking it once a week out of something closer to curiosity. The fear had quietly turned into something else. Not excitement exactly, more like steady, grounded control. He told Nyla the new total on a Sunday call. She went quiet for a moment, then said, "You did that in 9 weeks. Imagine where you'll be in 9 months." That sentence sat with him differently than anything else had during this entire process. He realized the version of himself who avoided the drawer for a year had not been lazy or weak. He had simply been afraid of a number that felt unbeatable from the outside, the way every large debt does before you actually look at it directly. The number had not gotten smaller because of one big decision. It had gotten smaller because of 70 small, repeated, mostly boring decisions, most of which nobody except Farhan ever saw. By month 5, just over half the original total was gone. He still had a real distance left to go. He was not rich. He was not free of debt yet. He still checked prices carefully at the grocery store, but he slept without that specific, low hum of dread for the first time in over a year. This story is almost finished, but the last part is the part that actually matters for you right now, whatever your own envelope happens to be. Part 5, the lesson. This is not a story about getting out of debt fast. It is about the one decision that has to happen before any plan works at all, and it has nothing to do with money. Farhan's real problem was never only the number in those envelopes. His real problem was a full year of not knowing the number and letting that not knowing quietly grow heavier than the debt itself. Almost everyone watching this has their own version of that drawer. Maybe it is a number on a bank app you have not opened in weeks. Maybe it is a conversation you have been avoiding. Maybe it is a habit you already know is hurting you, and you simply have not looked at it directly. Avoidance feels safer in the moment. It is not. It is just debt of a different kind, quietly growing interest in the dark while you look away. Farhan's sister gave him one sentence that mattered more than any budgeting advice ever could. You cannot fix a number you refuse to look at. That is true for money. It is true for almost everything else that scares us into looking away. You do not need a perfect plan tonight. Farhan did not have one either. Not really, not at the start. He had one envelope, then 11, then one honest total written on a single sheet of paper. So here is the only question that matters right now. What is the envelope you have been avoiding? And what would it actually feel like to open it tonight, instead of one more year from now? If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to open their own envelope. And tell me in the comments, what is the one number or the one truth you have been avoiding? I read every single comment. Subscribe. Next week, there is another real story here, the kind that might be exactly the push you need. See you in the next one.